I'm going to kick off today's webcast around contract lifecycle management using SharePoint, Office 365, both on-prem and in Office 365, and with Nintex. So our perfunctory sort of housekeeping, a little bit about who we are. We've won a lot of awards over the years. A lot of you have been following us over the years as well. So very high-end work that we do, have some very notable customers. And in general, like I said, we've had a number of awards from Microsoft, and our expertise is really quite high across that SharePoint stack and Nintex as well, focusing on business solutions, typically for professional services. So to tee it up today, we hear a lot about digital transformation and what it means to the community of technologists and users of solutions in the community. And standard sort of ways to look at this is that digital transformation is about getting closer to customers and being more agile and innovative. So the getting closer to customers part is somewhat what we refer to as the retail effect, where solutions to your business users now really have to have the usability and effectiveness that they're used to from the retail market. And so part of this transformation is to do it efficiently, innovatively, and really drive competition and profitability, but it's agile. And this is going to be an important concept as we come along. So Nintex, which we really think is the tool for agile development, has a number of global customers. This is a short list of theirs, and then some of the ones that we share as well. We have a number of others, but some very notable logos, Nintex being the largest and most successful company of type in the industry. And so Nintex has some core benefit around its return on investment. Templates are reusable. You can save snippets of actions and reuse that. Just an incredible number of connectors that you'll see come into play during the demonstration. And with this, you really are able to rapidly engage your clients. Power users can go into design workflows, modify, leverage, and just reuse over and over and over again. And this is really at the core of Nintex's agile capabilities. It doesn't have to be monolithic. You can go in, you can live with it, you can change it quickly, and then respond to your client's needs. So, coming back to today's topic, what exactly is lifecycle, contract lifecycle management? And so I have this rather perfunctory Wikipedia definition up here. And just to read you at it, it's proactive methodological management of a contract from initiation through award, compliance, and renewal. Implementing CLM can lead to significant improvements in cost savings and efficiency. And there are common terms around CLM, such as cradle to grave, it's a governed process, it's part of records management. And while all of these statements are applicable and true, really the success of the implementation of a CLM is really has to focus on that depending on who you are, what actor you are in that process. The success criteria for any individual user is actually very different. And that's what you have to address. That's the usability and the ability to quickly respond to those needs. So in other words, a sales rep looking to get a contract out into the wild, they care about their working in their native, in this case, say Salesforce interface. Well, the people in the legal group need to be able to have these contracts pre-assembled to a great degree, if not entirely, have to have a way to review it, has to go through procurement. And so every actor in the contract lifecycle journey has different needs and enters the system and exits the system at different points. So when you think about it, the goals of implementing a CLM are certainly the ones I just mentioned. And this, I'll skip to the middle of this slide. One of the things that you really want to do is avoid one size fits all. If you buy a contract lifecycle management system, that's great for legal, but really drives procurement and sales insane, that's somewhat problematic. And in general, you want to automate the development and creation of these contracts. You want it governed. You want to be able to report on it on every stage of its journey. You also want something that extends the value of your existing technology investments. So, and then extensible across the business. So if you look at this little diagram we have on the right, and this starts to bring you into the world of Nintex. Nintex ships with all these types of connectors and can pull content in and through its document generation ability, create and assemble contracts, then deliver to your contacts, and then report on it throughout. So this ROI of existing technology means you're bringing Salesforce, DocuSign, Adobe Sign, Microsoft CRM, whatever you have in the shop already. Nintex will go a long way to bringing that together in a coherent CLM. That means that people can live in their native user experience and really drive success. Now, you have two approaches. Obviously, we're leading with platform, but it's not to say that point solutions don't have their value. Point solutions are vertically tiered. Their messaging resonates very organically and simply with your customer inside the enterprise. They're pretty rapid to roll out, and you know what you're going to get. You can look at it. You can see it before you buy it and implement it. The platform solution approach, which is what we're proposing, and what we think has, especially for larger customers, just much greater applicability, is that for one, it's reusable. You get to use these components that you have in the enterprise over and over and over again. And once you pick a platform approach that's coherent to one group or series of groups, it's much easier to take that same technology, that same approach to a solution, and then apply it to SEC reporting or OSHA reporting or HR onboarding and offboarding and a whole bunch of other things, that these same tools can be used over and over again. So with it, it extends the value of existing rather extends the value of your existing technology investment, and it scales horizontally and vertically. And one of the big things is it's flexible. So the point solutions, you pay somewhat for having this out-of-the-box vertically tiered experience, because that modification, that last 10, 20%, even 5% that really would drive value for an institution, typically is very expensive and difficult to achieve. And so platform is flexible. Now, with flexibility, though, comes also the risk or the perceived risk of, well, if we're going to do this, we don't know what we're going to get. Sometimes flexible is a bad thing. And working with our enterprise customers, the whole world has moved to Agile. Now, with Agile, it's just not an open checkbook. You have to know where you're going, and you have to be able to react quickly. And this is why we believe that bringing Nintex into that mix really allows Agile to happen, allows you to snap in quickly and see quickly where you're at and make adjustments. So Nintex drives Agile. It connects your systems with its out-of-the-box connectors. It automatically creates content, then goes through its workflow platform where you can absolutely seamlessly report and have visibility into where you are throughout that entire life cycle. So this is a quick sample. I'm not going to read the slide at you. We'll distribute it to those of you who are kind enough to attend today. But this is a quick list of the systems they connect to out of the box. And this is an example of Hawkeye reporting, which also comes with the product stack. And this is one of my favorite pieces. Talk about Agile. You drop in beacons into your workflow and go, at this stage, we'd like to gather this information and report on it. So it's reporting not in your traditional, hey, how long is it taking for the workflow to fire? It's how many contracts have we put out in EMA that have gotten back this, have closed at this velocity and brought us this level of revenue. Real business metrics that really help drive that insight and then subsequent efficiency. So, as I said, this is extensible horizontally and vertically. Other uses of this technology stack that we're going to show you today, we're going to show you specifically CLM, but it's easily leveraged to handle not only contracts, but quotes, RFPs, pitch books. And again, we'll send you this list of information. So Christian Holzman is about to present a day in the life with Nintex CLM. On the right, here is the diagram of what we're going to show you. So users sitting in Salesforce just does what they usually do. They close a deal, they mark a certain percent, and with that, Nintex just picks in and starts to pull information in from Force, brings it, other information in a legal clause library in SharePoint, automatically creates a document, puts it where it belongs, and puts it through its trail of workflow, digital signature, and final deposit into your document repository. So with that, Christian Holzman.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm going to go ahead and bring up my screen here, and I'll take you through that day in the life of contracts management lifecycle. So I'm going to spend about the next 40 minutes or so walking you through our demo environment for CLM. Now, this demo was built with, this is a live demo, so it's in the cloud. It's operational. It functions entirely. Everything you're about to see is real. There's no magic here. We will be going through a sales process from the very beginning of it through the sales use case. So we'll be playing the part of the sales rep, going in and initiating the contract as the opportunity is created and the opportunity is won, going through and actually initiating that contract process out of the sales system, walking through then generating the agreement for that contract, generating the actual paper, and then talking about where does that come from and how does Nintex and SharePoint play a role in the governance of that. Then finally going through and looking at then what does the generated contract look like now that we have all the data that we're sourcing out of Salesforce. Let's take that data and put it into our contract document and then put that in our working documents library, our contracts library, and then we'll go through that process as well. And finally, we'll finish up at the end with some electronic signature integration, again, tying that back into Nintex and then showing how all of the information from the absolute very beginning of the process all the way through at every step is capturable and can be used for both operational and strategic reporting using Hawkeye, which is the Nintex reporting platform that comes with their subscription. So you'll get to see from cradle to grave how all that stuff works. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So we built this little dashboard here. This is sort of our starting point. So we have these four main sort of categories that we're going to walk through today. This is our start new contract, generate the agreement, move on to the working documents, and then we're going to go look at the reports and dashboards. And that's sort of the 1, 2, 3, 4 punch of the whole CLM lifecycle. This is a SharePoint Office 365 page, of course, that we're using here. And these are our link buttons, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to start with our sales use case. I'm going to put on my sales hat here, and I'm going to go into Salesforce, and we're going to initiate a contract. So there's nothing really funny about this whole process, right? This is our Salesforce site here. So we have our opportunities in here. We're tracking our accounts. We have all of our sales information, right? It's sitting in here. This is where we want to track it. Again, going back to what Joe was saying about the right person with the right tool in the right role, leverage those existing investments, right? CRM, Salesforce, what have you, we can grab it with Nintex and we can source this data. So let's have our sales team work on a Salesforce. Makes sense, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and initiate a brand new contract here. So again, this is our Salesforce menu here. So we're in Salesforce. So I'm in the contract side. Go to the Create New menu, New Contract, bring up our menu here. So we want this to initiate the whole process, right? So I'm going to go ahead and pick an account here and bring that into our contract here. And now you see some other data in here, customer signed by, signed title and date, right? So some of this stuff is going to get fed back in to Salesforce once the process completes. So we're going to fill out the most appropriate data that we have now to initiate the process, and then through the life cycle management of it, it actually gets rehydrated, and all of the systems then are updated appropriately with that operational and that strategic data. So we need a start date over here. We're going to go ahead and say that this contract is going to start on the 30th of October. It's going to be a 12-month term. We're going to go put in some additional information in here. We'll have our agreement end date be September 30th. And now what I'm doing is I'm typing all this information, hand keying it all in. And what's important to note here is that a lot of people will go in and they'll modify, they'll tweak their sort of sales process to include different types of fields and metrics that they want to capture. And that's all well and good. And there's nothing that's going to make this process any more difficult for you if you have your own custom fields, your own schema, all that stuff you want to capture. Salesforce is super useful in providing all the API keys to get Nintex connected into your environment, so you don't have to go fishing around and figuring out what everything's called, right? So we can drop all this stuff in here. We're going to say our expected close date is probably going to be we're going to go with tomorrow, put that in there. Our revenue is going to be $675,000, and our agreement value, let's say it's $500,000 agreement value. Right? Now you notice this link to contract, signature status. So some of these fields are going to be filled out later, and that's the point of the whole CLN. Is we want to start with what we know on the sales side, and then let the process of CLN govern the entry of the rest of the fields. So I'm going to put some more information in here. An address. And then this is going to get actually brought into the contract itself. You'll see when that happens. So I'm going to hit save and new. I'll just hit save. Save and new. There we go. So now we have our new contract record. Excellent. Great. So that's it, right? The sales process is effectively done, right? We've gone through the process of gathering our account. We set up an opportunity in here. And then at some point we were ready to go with the contract, so we initiated that contract process out of Salesforce. So because this is a demo, and because demos require me to show you stuff, rather than automating this through the back end, which is typically how it would happen, Nintex would on a schedule, it would go grab the list of contracts, it would find the ones that are new, that have just been issued, and it would handle all that process itself. What we're going to do is we're going to take this for demo purposes. We're going to grab this little contract ID here, and now we're going to move on to the next stage in our life cycle. So let's go back to our home page, right? So let's check back in here. So we did our contract here. We started our new contract out of Salesforce. So now what we need to do is we need to generate an agreement, right? So that's our next little button here. Run the workflow to pull contract data from Salesforce and generate the working draft, right? So let's click on this and see where this takes us. So this is going to take us to a Nintex workflow. And so the Nintex workflow is really the glue that sort of grabs all the data, orchestrates the whole process. And so what we can do is we can click on this Generate Subscription Agreement, and I'll go into this workflow a little bit. Trying to keep an eye on time here. Should be doing fine so far. And so this contract ID from Salesforce here, we're going to paste that right in, and we're going to hit Start. So what it's doing is basically saying, all right, so we have a contract. We know we need to generate this as paper. So we need to know what that ID is. Again, this would generally happen on the back end. It would be automatic. It would go ask Salesforce directly, hey, do you have any new contracts for me? And then it would sift through those IDs and then actually run this automatically. So you can automate this whole entire process. But that wouldn't be much of a demo if the whole thing happened automatically and I had nothing to show you. So here we are. So I'm going to hit Start. And what this does is fires off our contract workflow. All right. So this is our contract records that we generated. Now, this is going to fire up. It's going to start running. Our little tag here will update as it runs. Run this a few times before, so we've got some pre-baked contracts in the library already, and we can go take a look at those while this thing runs. But let's pause for a minute and talk about the contract generation process, right? So it's not just simple enough that you can sort of go in, create a workflow, grab grab your sales information from your CRM, and then just plop it into a Word document and you're off to the races. There's a little bit of work that has to be done before then, right? Through the contract generation process. You need legal to sign off on specific clauses. You need to generate your copy, right? Maybe you're getting your copy from your clients. Maybe you're generating your copy internally. You're going to generate potentially different types of agreements, and you'll have different departments that need different templates. So the way this process works here, what Nintex is doing for us is it's going into our contract template library, and it's pulling out our subscription agreement. So we're going to generate a subscription agreement in this demo. And so the official copy of that is here in a document library in SharePoint. So this is versionable, it's governable, we can approve it with a workflow in and of itself. We can co-author in here. we can create additional templates, or we can create additional pieces of documentation that we want to merge together into a single file and have that all work within the context of Nintex. And it can grab all this copy for us, this official approved copy, and it can generate our contracts for us. So let me show you what this thing looks like. I'll open this up here in Word Online. So this is a document template. And so, you know, we've gone through a lot of effort to make sure that this is what we want in our agreements, right? You know, we've validated the language, we've checked for, you know, regionality, we've, you know, maybe included separate clauses, and we have different rules based on, you know, what the geolocation of the customer is, and we may need to include different things. And so what we can do is we can take this sort of master copy and we can drop these little tags in here. So if you look closely at the screen, you'll see these little bracketed tags in here. So Nintex document generation, which is the workflow action that's going to take this document and drop our customer name and sales rep and all that information in here to generate our work and copy, has a tool that will open up in Word and will actually allow you to drop in the tags directly. So you might think, oh boy, I have to go in here and I have to type all these in by hand? No, not at all. Much, much easier than that. So with the new app model in the new version of Office, they have an add-in that just lives right in Word. It will open up on the right-hand side. If we have time, I can definitely show that later too. Joe, Ricky, if you guys want me to pull that up at some point once I get through the demo, I'm happy to do so. And I can show you where that sort of, where that is. It's very easy. You literally click on a tag and it just drops it in. So what it does is it just reads the schema from your contract list and says, oh, you have a field called customer name. Where would you like to drop that in? And you can just drop these in wherever it's important. So here you have the customer name inside of the agreement down here. If I scroll down a little farther, you'll see where some other information is going to show up. We've got the customer name down here as well in the signature line. You've got the address down here in the bill to section, contact name for GigWorks over here. So you can build these out how you need them to be built. And all this text is dynamic. You can pull it from different areas within SharePoint. And right now we're pulling all this stuff from Salesforce. So let's go see if our contract is done. All right, so back to our home page. We're going to check in where we're at. So we started our new contract in Salesforce, so that was done. We went to our Generate Subscription Agreement. We ran that button, and we pasted the contract ID in there. Again, a piece that would normally happen behind the scenes. So now we have our working documents library, right? So this is where, now that you've taken all that data out of Salesforce, and you've gone through the process of finalizing your contract templates with legal and with the sales teams and with the people who are necessary for that process to be completed, marry that all together with Nintex through the workflow and drop it into your working documents library. And this is where your team can then go to then finalize that contract. So let's pop this open. All right. So this is our master contracts library. So I've got one here that we can take a look at while we wait for the other one to finish. But this is our contracts working library. So now the ability you have when you're integrating this into a SharePoint environment, be this on-prem SharePoint or Office 365 SharePoint, is now you have a working document library to actually work on the draft copy. So there are a number of valuable features with this. With the document generation option, you see here that this one that I generated just prior to this, so I could show you one beforehand, it can generate both a Word document or a PDF. So you have options in terms of your file output. If you have a type of agreement that is immutable, meaning you generate it and it's not going to be different, it's a sort of standard agreement. You don't have to worry about it changing. Generate it as a PDF before you send it off for electronic signature. Alternatively, generate it as the original file format, which in this case is Word. And there are a number of other file formats that are supported as well. So I can go in and I can take a look at this document here. So we'll pop this one open. Remember, we were just looking at the template, so now let's look at one of these completed ones here. So here we have the draft contract with our Salesforce data baked in, prepared for Executive Towers, proposed by Joseph Gigerich, order number, A, B, C, D, F, G. Pull this stuff in from CRM, drop it right into your contract. Executive Towers, right? All this stuff is getting filled out. You can go down and look at our address line. Oop, I think I scrolled past it. There it is. Got our bill to address in there. All that stuff is coming through. We've got our primary contact information, right? Easy peasy, right? This is pretty straightforward. Let's go back and take a look at that contracts library. And we'll talk about a few other things that you can do in that library, just briefly in case you're new to SharePoint. So our working documents library, this is a SharePoint document library. So Nintex, what it does is after the connector goes out to Salesforce, grabs that contract information, generates a document for it, what it's going to do is it's going to load it up into our contracts library. So those are the files that you see here, right? Now you have a whole bunch of options while you're working in SharePoint. You can sync this to a local folder, for example, with OneDrive, and you can work with this offline if you want to take this on a plane or if you want to work offline, you don't have internet access. You can tag and manage these document libraries with a variety of different metadata. So you see all these fields here. These come in through a separate workflow that goes and ties this back to Salesforce and brings the metadata in. So you see some of these other ones that have been filled out here as examples. So we have a variety of information that we're tagging here. So this is useful on an operational side as well as on a strategic side. You want to be able to go in and find contracts of type. So I can go over here on the left, and we have our metadata navigation enabled, so I can filter by contract status. I can filter by agreement value if I want, and I can hit apply and then apply those filters to the library. So I'll find one that's signed. So here are a couple of the signed contracts that we have in here. So you can, perform the normal steps here. We've got grouping enabled, so you can group by the account that comes out of Salesforce. You can sort and you can filter using the column tags here. And you can also co-author, which is very important. So one of the key challenges that we run into a lot in the industry, especially with CLM, is that there's not necessarily a good co-authoring solution for contracts, where you might have to send something to a department 100 times. You've got a lot of people involved in the process. Have this system grab that baseline contract, drop it into a drafts library like this, and then everyone can open it up either through the browser directly or on their desktop with Word, and we can co-author together, and we can work on this file at the same time. Saves a lot of time, cuts down the time to delivery quite significantly, and that's a big gain as far as getting these out the door. It's always good to be able to deliver to a customer faster than anticipated. Everybody always likes that, right? All right, so let's go back and let's check on the contract that we're generating. I'm going to close some of these tabs out of here. Just bear with me for a second. And go back to our home page here. All right, so we're back on our home page. So I'm going to go over here to the left, and we're going to look at our contracts record. And I'm going to show you a little bit of detail into sort of what's happening behind the scenes, right? So we've got our contract record in here. This is our CLM demo contract record. So when we went into Salesforce and we created that contract record, we needed a corresponding record in SharePoint. So this got generated when we started that workflow. It plopped that into our list. And here you can see it's pulling in the information from our contract directly, and it's storing it in here. So you have it available in Salesforce, you have it available in SharePoint, and you can push that out to Hawkeye. You can push that out to DocuSign for electronic signature, right? The point is that it's following you through the whole process, and the facilitator of that really is the Nintex platform itself. Through its connectors, you can grab this data and you can move it along through the whole process. So you're not rekeying information, you're not losing information as you go along, and you can save all of it to the appropriate location so that it's visible to the people who need it, when they need it, and where they're working out of, which is the most important part, right? So let's go take a look at this workflow briefly. Doing a time check here. It's about 1:32, so I've got about 18 to 20 minutes left. So let's do a little bit of show and tell on this subscription agreement workflow here, and I'll just show you how you'll be surprised at kind of how basic this really is at the end of the day on how it runs. So this is our data, of course, coming in as SharePoint metadata, but let's look at what's happening behind the scenes. So the workflow itself goes out to Salesforce. It grabs that contract by the ID that I provided, and here we can see that it's going in and it's finding all of the information that's relevant to that contract. So of course it has an account ID, it's linked to an account. You could also link it to an opportunity if that's how you wanted to set up your Salesforce or your CRM settings. Again, very flexible, so it will just go out and say, let's see, what's all the metadata associated with this contract? Let's go get the account with this ID. We've got the ID of the contract already. Let's go look at some of the other properties here, billing, street, city, state. So it's all great, right? It's all excellent. So how does this actually work? Let's go take a look really quick. So I'm going to go into our contract records list. I'm going to pull open our workflow app here. I told you this is a live demo. This is our production Office 365 portal with a real workflow in there. Oh, I can't just sign in again. Let's see here. That one should work. There we go. Hawkeye's going to kick it later. So we've got, all right. So nice little updates to our, let's skip that for now. All right, modify existing workflow. So this is our generate subscription agreement workflow here. This is a workflow that's attached to our list that has our corresponding contract records that we're pulling in from Salesforce. So let me show you what this looks like. Let's go ahead and open this up. We'll take a look at the anatomy of this process. So what Nintex has done in generating these actions, these workflow actions that actually talk to the external systems, is that they're extremely easy to use. They're designed that what you do is you simply grab an action like this one, Salesforce retrieve record. You drag it and drop it onto the design surface. You set it up, and it will go talk to Salesforce. And because you're in, because you're in Office 365, you're talking to a hosted solution. All of the infrastructure is handled for you on the back end. There's a little bit of setup to do on-prem, but it's not very significant. Once it knows sort of where your either your CRM URL is, pretty much you're off to the races. So the extent of this workflow is pretty straightforward. There's a little bit of startup work that you have to do to set some workflow variables, and there's a little logging that goes on to say that, hey, we're running. But then basically you just jump right in. You go and you grab that Salesforce record right out of Salesforce. So it just takes that ID that I pasted, goes and grabs it. And then this is the data binding piece. So we're saving all the records, the values that come back from Salesforce right onto our SharePoint list. And then we immediately go into document generation. And so we have two actions for that. We have PDF and we have Word. That's it. That's the whole workflow. Go and get the record and generate the document, right? So we've already done all the work on the back end, right? Legal's gone through and they've looked at that contract template and they've approved it and it looks good and that's fine, right? So all we have to do is just use it to generate a document. So we go get our data and then we generate it, right? This is incredibly, and this works great. So let's take a look at sort of what you have options here on the document generation side. Because I know a lot of people are curious as sort of like what kind of options you have. Like, can you merge different files together? What kind of outputs do you have access to? So when you're generating a contract, the most important thing to note is that you can grab multiple templates, right? We just have one, right? Subscription agreement. So what you can do is if you have other files, you can add a document template here. So if you have a subscription agreement, plus you have a rider, plus you have some, geographic specific language because this is, an EU customer, you can go ahead and do that. You can grab additional documents and they can all come out of SharePoint libraries. And the output types that you can have for those are, you can do original file types, or you can do a single PDF or separate PDFs. So you can decide how you want to output these files. So if you have 5 different templates that are coming in that are governed by different teams and they're in different libraries and they have different security associated with them, it's not a problem at all, right? You just go and you say, I want this template from this library that these people are working on. I want this other one here. This is the master contract, da-da-da. You piece it all together and you dump it out as a single PDF and you're fine, right? And that's basically, in a nutshell, how this works. So you just pick an output location. You can alternatively do a folder path and you're effectively cooking with gas, right? You're all set. This is going to generate that file for you. So this is normally where I would stop and ask questions, but we're going to continue on since this is since we're on our webinar here. And we will have some time at the end, just so you guys know, to ask questions. So I will stop in about 12 or so minutes and open the floor up for questions so we can hang out. And if you guys want to send questions over to Ricky, I think they'll let you know at the end how that's going to work. So you can dig deeper into this if you'd like later on. So I'm going to close out here and we'll continue on. Okay. Again, let's check in back on our home page, see where we're at. So we started our contract out of Salesforce. We generated our subscription agreement using the workflow that pulled in all of our data automatically. We dropped it into our working documents library. So now it's time really to finish that draft and then send it off for signature. So this is, again, where Nintex will come into play as a facilitator for this process as well. So I'll hop back into our working documents library. Oh, and there we go. So here's our new subscription agreement that got generated. 0018. And so what you'll see over here on the right-hand side is that when you're ready to go, and GoToMeeting is going to be hiding these buttons for me, so I need to shrink this really quick. I can just move this. There we go. So over here on the right side, you're going to see this little column that says DocuSign, right? So another big piece of this that sort of closes the whole loop on the operational side of building the actual contract is then getting it signed, right? So it's great. You've got the sales people working out of your CRM and they're generating the opportunities and making contract requests, and then you've got your legal team and your contracts management team putting together all the paper. You've got your working departments that are issuing these contracts, co-authoring in here. You've got Nintex orchestrating that whole entire process. And then really the last piece of that is, all right, so now we have to send this thing out for electronic signature. So again, this is another workflow that comes into play. And this is our actual electronic signature workflow that we use to do this as well. Works incredibly well. We use Nintex workflow and we use DocuSign for this process. And just like Salesforce, DocuSign also has a workflow action that drops right into the Nintex Flow platform and it will allow you to go ahead and send that document up to DocuSign for electronic signatures. So I'm going to take our Word document subscription agreement here that we just generated. I'm going to click Get Signed. And it's so nice that this is working now, Joe. It just started working. I can't tell you why. And what this does is this takes us to our Start Workflow page. So we can just identify who do we want this to be signed by. Now again, we could pull this out of our CRM system. We can pull this out of if we want it to be keyed in manually, right? Depending on your standard operating procedure for this, it's very flexible, right? In our case, what we do is we actually type it in by hand, and this stuff just goes into DocuSign directly. But it would be very easy to also pull this out of Salesforce, include that in those fields that were out of the contract, and then just sort of automatically identify who this needs to go to, and then send it off for signature, either manually or when appropriate, based on a workflow trigger that says, yes, this is draft is approved, I like it, let's go ahead and send it off for signature, and then it just happens automatically. But again, if it happens automatically, it wouldn't make for a very good demo. So we're here going in, and we're typing this stuff in so you can see this work. So what this is going to do, this is going to fire up our second workflow, and this workflow goes out to DocuSign. It's going to initiate the signature on that, and it's going to actually then mark that document as signed. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to keep an eye on my inbox. So what's going to happen is this DocuSign workflow column is going to light up. It's going to tell us that once this gets started, it's going to be in progress, and it'll say something like, I don't have one in here yet. It'll say something like waiting on signature. So we'll let that thing warm up here. We'll just keep an eye and refresh the page. I have this zoomed in quite a ways so that everybody can see it, because I have I'm working off of a surface and the resolution is kind of high. But what this will do is it will grab that document, it'll upload it to DocuSign, it'll request signature from the people indicated on that form, and it will send out an email. And that email has a link to it, and it will allow me to get into DocuSign. So give me just 1 second while I pull that up here. I'm just going to grab my email and grab that link here. There we go. All right. Had to open my inbox real quick. No worries. Why don't you hold on 1 minute here so I get the right person on the line? Give me 1 minute, all right? All right, everybody. So you should see this DocuSign email notification that's popped into my inbox. So this document that I sent in there, it's been uploaded to DocuSign. I got the notice from DocuSign to go in and sign it. So I'm going to go ahead and click Review Document. And this is all pretty straightforward. So this is the document, again, that came out of our system. So here's prepared for executive salaries, proposed by Joe. We've got our subscription agreement here. And so I can go down here and I can go ahead and sign this. So I'll just drop my signature in here. So Joe, yes, I do accept our subscription agreement. Thank you very much. Finish. All set. And I'm done. All right? That's it. Super easy, right? Totally automated. Don't have to manually update that myself. It's all good, right? Drop that into a Nintex workflow, link that up to DocuSign, and that's all set. So now there's a piece of this that's of course, very important to everybody at the end of the whole process. So let's go check in again, back to our homepage, and talk about that last box. So we've started a contract. We've generated a subscription agreement from it. We've moved it to our working documents library, finished it, and sent it off for signature, and it's been signed. So does the process end here? No, it never does. There's always something after that, and what's after that is the reporting aspect of it, right? So what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to take all of this information that we're generating through this process. How long is it taking to get approved? What's the time delta between when the contract was, when the contract was requested versus when the opportunity was created, right? All that stuff sitting in Salesforce, or maybe you have some of that sitting in, a task list, right? How are you going to go grab that information? This is where Hawkeye comes in. So Nintex Hawkeye is a cloud reporting platform that will subsume any and all operational and strategic data points that you find valuable, and it will automatically provide them to you in an online interactive dashboard. Now that sounds like a big promise, right? But it's true. It's pretty awesome to watch this thing in action. So this is Hawkeye. Now, what Joe was talking about earlier was beacons, right? So the way this technology is powered is by workflow beacons. So in the Nintex Workflow Designer, just like how we had the Salesforce and the document generation actions on our workflow design surface, we have Hawkeye actions that take any data we want in any format, doesn't matter. We send it up, and it just throws that data right up into Hawkeye, right? So we can have any unstructured data of any format, and Hawkeye will take that, it will do the ETL for you, it will put it into what's called a lens, and it will make that available on a dashboard, right? And that is pretty awesome. So let's talk about lenses really quick, because this is a sort of fundamental aspect of Hawkeye itself. So if anybody on this is familiar with ETL or reporting or data warehousing, then you'll know that it's not easy, right? It's a fairly complex process. It requires a lot of specificity. You have to document a lot of things, and you have to build and maintain database servers and, write scripts to import the data. So basically, this removes that entire process. They do it all for you automatically through their Hawkeye cloud, and they give you just what you want, which is the lens. And this is basically the dashboard. So this is our contract management lens. So I'm going to open this up and show you what it looks like. So every time somebody starts a workflow, that workflow has information in it, right? It has information about the size of the deal. It has information about where the client is located. It has information about who the sales rep is, right? It has information about how long that contract has been in process. How long has it been, waiting between draft and signature, right? So all of this information is sitting right in those workflows, and it's getting pushed up to Hawkeye, and it's being surfaced right up here. And you can see that all through this dashboard. So these dashboards are based on Power BI, so they're interactive. So I can go in, for example, and I can filter by the contract revision 2 stage, and that will filter the rest of my charts here. And this is really ultimately where you want to get to, is you have operational data that's being generated through your CLM process. You want to be able to capture that and make it visible to you, right? So we can look at this by amount. We can do overviews by duration. How long are these contracts taking to generate? We can look at what are our major geos where we're generating a lot of contracts on a map here, right? You can really do a lot with these dashboards. And so what Hawkeye gives you is it gives you a starting point and gives you a baseline for how to look at all of your data. And what's really cool about their particular reporting technology is that there are two fundamental benefits to it besides just sort of canned lenses and dashboards. So for each one of these that they provide to you, you can go into the dashboard actions menu and you can download the Power BI template, right? So when I said they do all the ETL for you, they build the data model, they build the Power BI model, they're data warehousing everything for you, and they give it all to you in a single file. So you can download this entire dashboard and you can modify it however you see fit, right? And you'll see all of your Hawkeye beacons inside of that data. So you can create filtered views and really just kind of go to town and really build the strategic and operational reports that you need to see, right? And that's the whole point, right? So you've taken your Salesforce data, you've taken your contract data, you've merged that all together, and now you have one place where you can see it all. And last but not least is if you have other systems that consume this report data, or you want to do some fancy ad hoc reporting in Excel or something like that, you can also grab their OData connection, and this will give you a feed to the actual tabular data itself. So you can download it into a reporting tool of your choice and also build whatever you want with it. So very, very flexible. All right. So just as a quick recap, before we hop into Q&A, checking in again, back on our dashboard. So started a contract, right, through our Salesforce system, generated the subscription agreement based on legal approved copy sitting in our SharePoint document library, pushed that into a draft library with all of the pertinent information from Salesforce embedded in the document rather than having to go in and key it in, sent that out for electronic signature, reviewed it, all that fun stuff, and then last but not least, kept an eye on things through our Hawkeye dashboards to see operationally how we're doing. So that covers the whole gamut of the demo, all the use cases and everything.
And folks, if you do think of anything post, absolutely do reach out to us, please. But thank you as always. Hope this was informative, and do contact us for any additional questions or any other way we can assist. Thank you again, everybody.